Okay, school board, go for it.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our spring school meeting. This is a work session this evening. We have a couple of regular topics, and then we have our budget workshop number 2, I believe it is. So at this time, Julie, if you could do roll call, please.
Sure. Barbara Dayton.
Here.
Dave Conlon.
Here.
Tim Frazier.
Here.
Pat Brayman.
I'm here.
Okay, and Amy Rivera is absent. Okay.
Okay, Matt, if you have a flag, if we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance then, please. Or Pat has one. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Barbara, may I have just a second, please?
Yes.
I'm testing the phone lines right now. Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Perfect.
So lines are open and clean.
Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, well, Julie, I can't use yours for getting into the agenda either, so I'm just going to wing it here. We've got 2 subjects that we want to speak about before we get into the work session. One of which is regarding bringing students back to school 5 days a week, and the other is Carline. So,
Barbara, can we just give a quick update on remote learning and morning extra help before we go into 5 days a week?
Sounds great.
Okay. Christine?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Just give you a quick update on the full remote program. We had a rollout of the full remote program on February 8th, and we did not have a huge response to it. We have currently 7 students on full remote, in addition to the 7 students who are classified 504 that were full remote from the beginning of the year. So that was and most of them are at the junior high level, 7th and 8th grade. We do have a smattering of students at kindergarten, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and 4th grade. And so far, so good. The remote program seems to be successful. The parents were very grateful for that opportunity if they were living with somebody who was immunocompromised, or the child themselves had some sort of a need to stay out of school from now until the end of the year. And we have some of our regular on-staff teachers teaching some subjects, and we also have 2 remote teachers that are specifically assigned to these remote duties. So, and one of those teachers just had a baby, Mrs. Hoffman. So congratulations to her. She had a baby today. So taking over for Mrs. Hoffman for full remote will be Travis Santiago and Veronica Mazzina. Moving on to early morning extra help. We had mostly a response at the junior high level. There seemed to be the deepest need there. We have currently 8 teachers working with groups of students. We could not commingle. So we have various groups of students every day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And even sometimes on Wednesdays, they're working remotely. And these are mostly kids that were out for quarantine and then have to catch up, or just, children that are suffering from learning loss just due to COVID and being out last spring. So that has been beneficial to the kids. And we have approximately about 30 students that we're servicing, K through 8, mainly at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level.
And we'd like to continue to offer this for another quarter and see how it goes, if the board is okay with that. it really provides the extra help that these students need. The teachers have reported that it's been very beneficial, even in just giving them self-confidence. If they're reviewing the material ahead of time, they're more inclined to participate, having reviewed before the class actually starts. So.
And also, I just wanted to mention that thank you to our transportation department, because we've been able to provide early morning buses to the students whose parents go to work early and can't get them to school at 7:30. So that's been great, and that's really increased participation as well.
Great. Thank you very much, Christine.
You're welcome.
So is the board okay with us continuing extra
Yeah, definitely.
help?
Definitely.
I am. Yes. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Students returning to school 5 days a week. We're very excited to say that I think we're almost there. Christine, is Maria with us as well? I know Carrie's here. Carrie has found her new passion for scheduling along with Maria Mondini. So I'm very grateful for these two individuals who seem to have a head for this, but it's not that simple when you talk about bringing kids back for the 5th day. It is an entire K-8 scheduling puzzle, and they have successfully managed it. They have a little kinks to work out, and we are hopeful to bring back our students 5 days a week, March 8th. So that, not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, that would be the first week that students are back in school for a full week. Christine, do you have anything to add to that? There were some things that we could work out.
Yes, thanks, Deb. We were hoping to go back to our original bell schedule from last year. That means arrival would be 8:20 and dismissal would be 3:11 p.m. We would have 49-minute periods, just like last year before we went out, and with a little cushion in between. The kids will still be staying stationary in their classrooms. They won't be moving around, so that won't change. But the hours will change as far as 8 periods, but longer periods, and arrival and dismissal won't have that cushion. So we were hoping that we might be able to invite parents to drop off their children earlier for early morning drop off to alleviate some of the issues with Carline when we go back to an 8:20 start. That's probably for further discussion, but we thought if we could, between the early morning extra help, early drop off, and then maybe like an 7:45 early drop off, we would get the staffing in place for supervision for that. Then by the time 8:20 comes around or 8:10 comes around, we'll have, that many fewer cars in Carline. So that's what we're hoping to do. And we're very excited to bring the kids back where they're meant to be.
That sounds great. Do you think you'll be able to get those Carline issues worked out by the 8th? Your questions for concerns for drop off?
Let's talk about Carline for just a minute. I just got off the phone with Ken Averso from the police department. We just posted on our website today. We are looking for additional crossing guards. The town has been very supportive. They've been out by us, and they see what we're struggling with. We have allowed our parents to drop off in front of the building, which we've never been able to do before, but unfortunately, we cannot do that safely unless there's a police officer there, and we can't guarantee a police officer there all the time. So Ken would like a couple of more days to talk with Chief Sarlo to come back at this again. He's hoping that with the early drop-off, we have to limit it because we can't have too many children in the gym or in the courtyard or in the commons area. We have to kind of divide our children up and make sure we have enough supervision. But he's hoping to put some of those things in place first and then seeing what our Carline looks like and what else he can do. We've already investigated that our security guards cannot be in the street. They are not covered by our insurance. They are not covered by the town's insurance. For
Hey,
direct.
Deb, can I interrupt you for a second? I'm sorry. LTV, if you could make sure the YouTube link is working. I'm getting a couple messages saying that people aren't seeing it.
Yes, it's on my error. I'm redoing it right now.
Okay, thank you. I'll let them know. Sorry, Deb, go ahead.
Julie, were you able to get Amy in as well?
Yeah, I'm working on that now. Yep.
Thank you.
Hey Deb,
Yes.
when cars are in the morning for drop off or at the end of the day, parents that are dropping their kids off that are coming west on Old Stone Highway from like Barnes Landing from Amagansett.
Yeah.
A lot of them, when the line starts to back up on Old Stone Highway before the car line starts to move, those cars coming west like to wait and stop traffic and put the blinker on to turn on to Ed Holtz. And what happens is there's cars behind them who are just trying to pass them, and they start to honk the horn because they just want to continue on Old Stone Highway. Maybe a memo or an email out to parents saying that you should really keep driving to the end of the line, do maybe a turn, maybe in Springs General Store parking lot, and get to the end of the line, and don't just, I'm surprised the police haven't mentioned that as a big problem. Has anybody else noticed that?
They have, Dave. They actually said our needs right now are 3 police officers, which they don't have the resources for. Our parents are dropping their kids off on School Street, kind of up near the general store, and the kids and the parents are crossing over where there are cars going in both directions on School Street. They will allow children to be dropped off at the crosswalk where there's a police officer. They have had a police officer down by Old Stone Highway and the general store. People have had almost head-on collisions trying to pass, stopped, because the cars are stopped. Also, the people making a right onto Ed Holtz Lane are not letting the people who are trying to make a left come in. And
That's what I mean.
we can't direct traffic out in the road. We really
Well,
We need a sign there, I think, that says no left turn into Ed Holtz Lane that's on that side of the road. I mean, that would have to be a town thing. That's sort of always been an issue. And especially, some people have been on the line a long time waiting to make the right-hand turn. Suddenly someone comes up on the left and thinks they're going to scoot right in. People have always had an issue with that. And can the town put a sign there?
I will make that request. I told Ken that he really needs to look at this because remember, that's our car line. And there's a bend in the road that I'm very worried about. So the construction road is our new car line. So I'm worried about cars making a left out of there because remember, they're going in and there's a roundabout and they're coming back out the same way they came in. So there should be, directionality there that you can only go right when leaving and you can only go right coming in. That should be the traffic pattern.
Is it possible that we could have, I don't know, who do you have on a committee for the call line? Who's on the call line? You have a couple police officers, trying to set up call line. Do they understand that Spring School does go down to Barnes Landing? Is there a possible way the parents from Barnes Landing could drop off by the general store? Not fall into the thing. We could send out some sort of email. But like Christine talking about early drop off at 7:15 is the early classes, right?
7:30.
Peter did it at 7:15. Okay, 7:30. Then you have 7:45. You said we're going to start accepting some kids, correct?
Yes. So
you just freed up 45 minutes of cars to 7:20. Do you want to do that by grade level of 7:45 or just at will? Because the more staff you're going to need because of COVID. But if you could do it for grade level, maybe the upper grades can come in earlier. They're easy to manageable. You put them right in the classroom. I don't know.
For those parents who have multiple children.
Well, yeah, but we could do a survey of that. We could just see how it works out. How many kids are really for multiple family kids? We could assume there's 5 or 6 families. What was it? Is that 10? I don't know. But how many, how many junior high kids are there with students in the elementary level? You know what I mean?
Yes, no, we intended on sending out a survey because we're gonna need to know, we're gonna have to have a limit. The gym right now can only hold 80 students. And I wouldn't recommend,
8 students is not enough. But was it possible? So you were planning on, that was your plan, was it 7:45 drop off? Is it 7:45 would just be 8 students in the gym? Or would
yes.
you,
Remember
that doesn't really help.
The students used to be dropped off at 7:30 and they were on the blacktop.
Yeah, no, I know that, but we can't do that no more. So in the COVID situation, 8 kids isn't going to be enough to alleviate the problem. It's not going to work. I mean, you might as well.
I said 80 kids, Pat, 80.
I'm sorry, 80. Oh,
80.
no. Oh, that's plenty. That's a lot. Might solve the problem then. 80 is a lot. And is it possible for the first part of the year to still start the school at 8:50, leaving that free period till 8:50, so we can alleviate the call line a little bit more, a little less kids online, a little bit later start of the school day, a little bit shorter period. Is it possible to do that?
Pat, the parents are not taking advantage of dropping their kids off at 8:50.
The reason why is that, and I don't know if staff listen or not, some of the staff get upset when the children shows up at 8:50. They expect them to be in the seat at 8:25 or 8:30, but not 8:50.
Yeah, the majority, Pat, of Carline is actually done by 8:35, 8:40, depending on.
I know that because I think a lot of the staff have an issue with kids coming in at 8:45.
Right.
Because I just found that out today when I dropped PJ off late because I talked to Dave and Dave said he does 8:40. Okay, cool. But I know in the past some of the staff have had issues with kids coming in at 8:45. So maybe the kids are just excited to see their friends. You know, I don't know.
Well, what we're trying to do, Pat, is get back to as close to normal. And as I said, the scheduling, everybody thinks this is like you can just turn on a dime, but we can't. It takes a lot of scheduling, and we just like to get
back.
I
know that. I said we're gonna go slow. So I know that. That's what I'm saying. We did the 8:50. It's still abnormal, and it's still, but it also, it's in effect keeps us in the same place. We do have to go back to hybrid right away.
We have, Pat, that there's a 10-minute leeway with this schedule, so you're right. They're not starting class at 8:20. They're starting class at 8:30 at the junior high.
Just thinking of call line, 80 kids a lot though to get them early. That's good. That's a big.
And if we have to adjust it, we'll adjust it. That the first period is a little shorter. But yet the rest of the day, they're going to gain 9 minutes for every period.
The other option, and I know this is tricky with COVID, but our buses are not to capacity, our school buses. So, they are clean, they are safe, they're taking the temperatures on the buses, they are being, they are being monitored. So, I mean, if parents want that option, that have been dropping their kids off on Carline, our buses, we have decreased the capacity to 41, and not one of them has that many children on it. So there is plenty of room on the buses as well.
Pat, you asked that question about percentages on the bus. So right now, our buses are anywhere from 33% to 70% capacity, and we have 8 routes. So the buses are being underutilized, and I realize why, and we asked our parents to help us out to try to keep those buses at what the state recommended, but we are underutilized.
But legally, you can put that many students on the bus to the capacity. You're under the capacity, but legally what you could do, correct?
Yes, we're allowed about 41 students on a bus.
Okay, so maybe we have to just send more emails out, remind parents that the buses, are utilized. Please utilize the bus if you can.
Parents have signed up for the buses. We have the students on the buses, but they're not riding.
Right.
Parents have used it like an emergency, especially We don't have the same problem with Carline at the end of the day that we do in the morning. The morning is where I'm very concerned about the way kids are
I
being.
was down there, I called you because I was really concerned. I went down there. I never do School Street, but I just, one morning, let me see how bad it is. And we had parents double parked in front of the school, unloading their kids, standing in the street. Now, I got a big pickup truck. I could see over and around cars, but a lot of the other cars could not see in front of the cars, and there was no police officer there either. You know, but in front of the school is very dangerous, you know. And some parents just don't, you know, realize it. They just think it's normal practice. I'm not sure. You know, a lot of us been there a long time know that we don't drop off in front of the school. We haven't addressed that really in the email or really been forceful about it, I don't think. At least I haven't seen the emails on it.
No, we were told we could drop off if there's police presence. So the police have been trying to help us out by doing that, but they can't always be present.
That's dangerous now. That's
Yeah,
dangerous
it
to
is.
believe you're gambling on the police to be there unless we're going to hire more full-time staff out there. But I think the way Christine was bringing it up, the 7:45 drop-off, which is great, 7:30 before school programs is great. That's another 30 kids, right?
Yes.
30 to 80 to 110 kids in the classroom. Then you have another 150 on the bus. That's a lot of, that's really going to help us out a lot. But we really got to emphasize the front of the school cannot be dropped off and double park in front of the school. Someone's going to get run over.
Yeah.
And then on Dave's end, if we could maybe talk to the Bonds Land and parents and see if they have an idea, because they run into us every day of this situation and pulling in front of the school.
And so you don't want them pulling up on School Street.
Unless we're going to have somebody hired out there to do the traffic.
Right, unless there's going to be somebody out there.
Right. So, Deb, what time do the buses leave the bus circle? And is it possible to get them out of there earlier so that can become a secondary drop-off area there in the front?
The problem we have, Barbara, is our teachers don't report to work until 8:20. So even though our buses could be there as early as 10 after 8, I can't disembark them without having a place for them to go. That's too many children to put in hallways waiting to get into classrooms.
Right.
So we dismiss at 8:19. We're done. By 8:30, every child is off that bus. Remember, we're not dismissing all buses at the same time. We actually dismiss from the last bus that comes in. We let the special ed children off first. They're usually in the circle first. We have a bus from Montauk that we let leave right away because she has to go on to another route. And then we have the kids disembark from the last bus that pulls in, working their way up to the front door. And then we bring over the SYA children and the portable children. They gather in the front and wait to be brought over to those buildings. We have a lot of parents walking their kids across. They park at Ashawa Hall and they walk over, but they're not crossing in the crosswalk. They're just crossing right across School Street or Stone Highway. It's massive. There are people and children going in 5 to 10 different directions. It's not safe. And we've had a police present both at the end of School Street, at the end of Springs Fireplace in School Street, Old Stone Highway, and Ed Holtz Lane.
So what time do the buses show up in the bus circle?
About 8:05, they start to show up.
Okay, so if we're having kids sitting there in the buses between 8:05 and like 8:19, that's could they be sitting? Could we get permission for them to sit someplace else if they're not going to be getting dropped off until then? And that serves as another drop-off area for a term in the morning.
I don't know where to put them, Barbara. It's a lot of children. You figure, at least 25 on each bus.
Right.
Times 8.
No, I mean, kids are staying on the bus, but the bus is parked someplace else with the kids on it.
What about the church parking lot?
Church parking lot, Ashwag Hall, side of the road, and you could be using that other thing for cars until 8:15. Then you bring the buses in there. Then the kids have time to get out.
Do you really want the 10 buses with 100 kids parked down the road? I think the safest place for them to be is in the school property.
Well, it is, but then you're having issues where if you're not having enough space for drop off, I mean, as unfortunately, we'll see how, with getting kids back in on the regular schedule, how bad it is. I'm just trying to think outside the box here for, the short term until we get our official long entryway, how we can juggle this to get everybody, in there.
I would really worry about letting anybody use the bus loop. What if a car breaks down in the bus loop and
Right.
then buses can't get by?
Yep. Okay.
We've made that bus loop pretty sacred,
Yep.
and I wouldn't want to mess with that. I mean, after the buses are out, that's a possibility, but then you're looking at, at least 8:35 before you got those buses pulling out of there.
Deborah, just listening to this conversation, I go back to the police. There's got to be a way where, again, maybe they have unlimited resources, but it still seems like it falls within their responsibility to make this a safe. And it really, I don't know who we could talk to or bring together, but even though they may want to readjust their resources a little bit for that morning time from just 8 to 9, where they could have a couple officers who could come in and direct traffic and make it safer, because again, they're not the school wouldn't then have the liability of that, because I know what that's like. I mean, standing out front of a school trying to direct traffic should be an officer, not a teacher, not a TA, not even security. It really is a job for the police to do. So I don't know, maybe trying to pursue that a little bit more with the town police, and trying to see if we could get 2 or 3 officers there every morning, just for the morning. That seems to be when the critical time is. And
Universo promised he was speaking to the chief and he would get back to me. He's been on site. 2 other officers have been on site, but if they get called away, Tim, that's our problem.
Or Tim. Barbara.
Well, I'd rather them be getting called away than coming to us for an issue. Again, I think this is a time for them to maybe reallocate their resources a little bit. And in the morning, between most of the action in Springs anyway is right in our school. It's not somewhere else. It's right there. That's where the most of the traffic is, and most of the people that need to be monitored by the police are anyway, I would think. So I'm just trying to think of a way around, because we've thought about this issue for years. I mean, and now it's more critical because we're in the middle of a capital improvement and there's not enough space because of construction and so forth where we could maybe do something differently. But,
Should we draft a letter, Tim, to the town board and to the chief of police from the school board? And we should draft it from the school board and superintendent that we need some assistance here.
Right.
That's a good idea.
They've been very responsive. I have to say.
It's in writing, but you said they're being responsive, but it might not be. It's that one time that they're not there that's going to bite us. Yeah. I don't want to be that one time.
Okay.
The town doesn't hire school crossing guards?
Yeah. We have an ambulance in there at 8 o'clock in the morning. At 8:30. You're not getting an ambulance at that school at 8:30.
I mean, in the village, they have sort of the same problem at the middle school, but they have 4 or 5 officers, traffic police. There's plenty of people directing traffic there.
In the high school too.
Yeah.
High school.
And John Marshall also. So if the village can do it, why can't the town do it? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's the town's responsibility to provide schools with crossing guards.
I'd like to see them.
Right now, there's a recommendation on the table for at least 2. Right now, where we have a police officer, we don't even have a crossing guard on Springs Fireplace Road. They're looking. I posted it on the website. We'll put it out to our parents.
But the town should be looking for. The town looking for them.
Yeah.
Yes, they've posted it. They've tweeted it. They've Facebooked it, and they've come up short. They're short at every school, they said. I spoke to Kenny today. They're short at every school. If anybody needs a job, the town is hiring.
Yeah, but we're looking for a solution. We're looking for a solution-oriented town. You know, 'cause we could say the same thing about, you know, substitutes or whatever, but we go out there and we make it happen. So come on, you know, town needs to step up here a little bit, I think.
All right. So, well, we definitely have some issues with Carline, and we'll see how those get forward and you know, getting resolved. I mean, maybe the simplest thing would be flexibility for kids when they're coming in. If they are coming in late, they're not getting marked late, to allow parents and kids to continue to be a little flexible there. I mean, we've been saying flexibility is key to getting through this whole thing the whole time, and I think it still will be. So, you know, at a minimum, that you know, making sure kids aren't penalized if they're coming in late due to traffic would be helpful.
Barbara, before you go to the budget meeting, we want to take questions, but I wanted Christine to tell you some good news for our 8th graders. We have a trip being planned. Christine?
So Laura Fody, who is our 8th grade coordinator, she found Long Island Adventure Park, which is located in Wheatley Heights, Huntington area. And they are open for business this spring with all the COVID procedures in place and safety guidelines. And she did reserve May 20th and May 21st. And she hasn't had an information meeting about it yet. We wanted to talk to you about it, of course, but we're really excited for the kids because this could be their end of the year culmination and celebration. They would do 2 days. They would split the class in half. There's, I think, 78 students in 8th grade. So they would split it in half. And of course, you know, if the parents are not comfortable, then they wouldn't send the students, and maybe we could come up with an alternative. But right now they are going to do a fundraiser for a charter bus. And they are, you know, she's excited for it. She thinks that this is something that it's outside, it's safe. The numbers would be low each day, and it would only be them there, you know, at the park on those days. So it's a nice option for them to get off the grounds and, you know, celebrate their last year together.
Right, that would be nice. I mean, I think you'd want to find out if the parents are, you know, comfortable with that before getting too far with the plans. But
yes, Laura's planning a parent information meeting coming up. She just had to, you know, deal with a couple of logistics, but yeah, she's going to do that. That's her next step.
okay, great. I didn't realize Adventureland was still there.
No, it's an adventure park, Barbara. It's like,
Oh, I've been there a long time ago.
With all the zip lines, right?
yes, it's a zip line.
Park, yeah.
Yep,
Oh,
it's,
wait, you're talking
Not
about
Adventureland, not
No.
Adventureland.
No, Long Island Adventure Park, Long Island Adventure
Gotcha,
Park.
okay.
it's like teamwork and, you know, working together.
Adventureland is still there in Farmingdale on 110.
Oh, okay, cool.
Don't give them any ideas.
No, Adventure Park sounds a lot of fun. All right, well, thanks. Hopefully that will work out for them.
It's not like Jurassic Park, I've heard.
So and actually, I should say we did get a letter from some parents inquiring about full return to school, but I have a feeling we've actually addressed all their issues since we were talking about this anyway. You let them know we were talking about this, I think.
Yes, I did, Barbara. You want the letter read or no? Julie has it.
You know what? I think we've actually covered all, you know, they were asking when we were going to be going back to full time. It was a good thing. And you guys have already been on top of that. So I think we can move on. We will adjourn this work session.
You want to take any questions on these topics?
Yes,
Barbara?
of course. Yes. Thank you, Deb. So if anybody has any questions, the LTV should have the phone number up there that you can call in on.
And as of right now, we still have 0 callers.
Pat's asking that I just reiterate that we are planning to be full-time next week. We will put something out to our parents, but next Wednesday will be the first full day back, the first full week back, excuse me.
March 10th.
Yes.
Hey Deb, I spoke to LTV and they're gonna have the entire meeting from the beginning for those that weren't able to see the first 10 minutes or so. He'll have it posted right after we adjourn the budget work session.
Okay.
So it'll be posted on LTV.
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
Okay.
So if there aren't any calls now, and if anybody finds something later on that they have a question about, you can always email the school, and people will respond to your questions. So at this time, if there are still no calls, let's adjourn the regular work session. And or do I have to, Julie? Do I need to do the whole motion to adjourn this one?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then we'll just call the budget work session to order and I'll do roll call and then we're good.
Great. So it's 7:42. I'd like to call the budget work session to order, please. Julie?
Barbara Dayton,
Here.
Tim Frazier,
Here.
Dave Conlon,
Here.
Pat Brabant.
Here.
Amy Rivera. Okay, go ahead.
Sounds like she's.
Thanks, Julie. Okay, Deb or Mike, who's going to start us off here?
Mike, can you share the screen? Mike?
I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with this Zoom. How to share it.
Julie, is this something you can do?
Bar on the bottom, there's a button that says share screen. What happens with that?
I don't have that. Oh, there it is. I have it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me. All right. How's that?
That's great, Mike. Thank you. I'm going to start. If you could just scroll very quickly, just some reminders for those who weren't with us in the past budget workshop. I just wanted to go over our mission statement again and some of our goals, just as a reminder for our parents and for anybody watching that spring school is committed to providing a safe environment for all our students. We are going to provide high quality instruction, curriculum, professional development for our staff, the whole child approach, and definitely pursue many resources to help our students and our teachers do their work. Mike?
You can keep going.
Yep, stop here. We want to we want to maintain what we currently have, and our enrollment is up there for everybody to see. We've been pretty consistent, and if we take all of the children that are being homeschooled right now and bring them back, which we anticipate, then we will probably be at the exact numbers we were at last year. Maybe kindergarten might be a little lower. So we want to maintain our programs K-8. We want to keep our small class size. As Pat mentioned, we're not sure where COVID's going to be in September, so that small class size will definitely help us. Staffing that meets the state and federal mandates and requirements, a commitment to continue with the technology, extracurricular in this budget, sports, band, chorus, opera, robotics, planning to bring everything back that our students have missed this year. Keeping our school security guards, adequate custodial staff, especially with our new addition. We have a full complement of bus drivers, maintaining that. We're going to talk about bus monitors tonight. Keeping our permanent substitute teachers has really helped us, and our professional development to continue that, as well as our social and emotional programs for our students. So those are all the things in this budget we want to maintain. Go ahead, Mike. You can skip that one too. You did enrollment. Okay. So I'm in charge of transportation. So I met with Marion and we looked at last year's budget, and we have a couple of budget items that will change. There'll be an increase in our insurance cost, about 6%, so it's $900. Increase in gasoline for the 21-22 school year. We expect the price of gas to go up by 40%. And we have an additional gas vehicles, 2 vans and 1 bus. This year is not a good year of looking at what that looks like because we've been on hybrid. And last year's not a good barometer of what we're going to spend. So we're looking at $20,000 more than we spent 2 years ago on gasoline. We're proposing another proposition. Remember, we're on a plan to replace our buses. We've added a small van to this proposition with the board's approval. This small van would help us with picking up students that could be homeless in Hampton Bays or East Quogue or even further west. Right now, a driver has to take home a minibus, and sometimes parking a minibus at your home is a problem, but a smaller van would not stand out. It would be easy to park, and this way this driver who lives up island could pick up a homeless child on the way in. So that is the changes to the actual budget for transportation. Mike? Our current transportation staffing, and I'm going to knock on wood, currently, as I said, we have a full complement of drivers. We have 1 head driver who works 12 months. We have another driver that works 12 months. That's Marion is your head bus driver. Lena is your 12-month driver. We have 10 full-time drivers. They're 10 months, and 1 part-time driver. Currently, we have a full-time monitor for the BOCES bus. That person is our employee. And then we have 2 special ed monitors on our own special ed bus in Springs. New this year, due to COVID, were monitors on buses. We have 7 AM and PM monitors. All different people help us out, from our staff teaching assistants to our lunch and recess monitors. We have secured for either AM or PM, or some of them do both AM and PM. The current cost of monitors on buses is about $64,000 for the entire year. If you ask our drivers what they think of their monitors, they've been worth their weight in gold. Keeping our children in their seats, keeping masks on, making everyone feel safe. So if you ask them, they would say continue this for next year. But I did say that the cost of having monitors on the bus is really, at this point in time, a safety factor. And going forward, could we support continuing this for the safety of our students, our driver? Going forward, that's the question. I just wanted you to have that information. It's not required by law. We did anticipate that this would be very helpful, maintaining social distancing on our buses and wearing masks, and it has. We have really had no issues on our buses this year. And our bus drivers have been able to focus on driving.
Do you want to have questions on the transportation that you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Barbara, any board members have questions on the transportation budget?
Oh, I have a question. So I know we've been looking at, bringing new vehicles in sort of on a regular basis. Have we looked at all at, hybrid or electric ones, and what that cost is? And, if we're really replacing the fleet, is that a viable option in the near future that we should be thinking about?
We did have a salesperson here last year that we spoke to about an electric bus.
Mhm.
They are much more expensive than the traditional buses, the gas-fueled buses. And I think, as I recall, I think we have to recharge the bus. Like it'll do the morning runs, but then we have to recharge it in the midday and then do the afternoon run. So you don't get a whole lot of mileage on a battery charge.
Hmm.
They were much more expensive. That was the one thing.
Barbara, I also looked into some incentives. I think the town or a section of New York State was into providing some incentives, but they have seemed to dry up with the COVID right now.
Right.
I
Okay.
haven't
No, I was quickly looking, and I just saw like somebody in Connecticut got a grant for something, and they were trying out a bus, and there will come a point eventually where we should, look into it, whether this is the right time or not. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the other problem was we'd have to install charging stations for each bus that is run off of a battery.
Okay.
And I don't know how expensive those things would be to install, but that's something else to think about.
Okay. Thanks.
We
Mike.
definitely have to keep our eye on it, Barbara, because depending on the articles you read, there's talk about some point in time
Yeah.
we're all going to be electric. But then somebody brought up a really good point. What do you do when you're without power? Now you don't have a vehicle to drive if you need to, transport our students back and forth to school. And I said, but then we won't be in school because we won't have electric. So,
Right. Yeah. So okay.
it was a good point, but I said it's a mute point because if we don't have electric, we're not going to be in school and we're not going to be remote. That's why on the calendar, I took snow days off and put contingent days because we're more likely to be fully closed during a hurricane than we are a snowstorm. So
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Does anybody else have any questions?
Nope. All right, so we'll move on to facilities.
yes, Mike, if you would take that, please.
Yep. All right, again, like transportation, for the most part, our facilities are going to remain unchanged with the exception of fuel costs for the heating fuel. This year, we had a little bit colder winter, and we have seen a little bit, quite a bit of an increase in the consumption of fuel. So I'm estimating our typical fuel cost is somewhere between 75 and 80,000. So I'm adding a 35,000 as a potential increase in that fuel cost. And again, the increase or decrease in fuel costs is a direct function of the weather outside, whether it's too cold or a little warm, a little milder winter. So continued costs due to the pandemic. That's for PPE supplies, the gloves, the rubber gloves that the guys wear, the cleaning supplies and disinfecting supplies. And I'm estimating, based on what we did this past year, roughly $75,000 we're going to need to sustain those pandemic related costs. We're estimating an increase of $50,000 in salaries and benefits and extra due to the extra day converting 2 part-time custodians to a full-time. And as you know, with the new addition, it's going to create a little bit more square footage for cleaning purposes. And we had always thought that, we'd have the permanent subs that would work 4 days a week. So we're just increasing them to 5 days. But by doing so, we have to offer them full benefits. We're also considering the possibility for maintenance and grounds type person. Don't know that it's actually a full-time. They could still work across as helping out the custodians and cleaning, but converting one of our custodian positions, like our swing shift guy, into a maintenance and grounds type of a person who could do some of the odds and ends around the building, help with the sprinkler systems and things like that out on the field, and just do general stuff that's related to the fields during the daytime. Our custodial staffing, right now we've got the 1 chief custodian, a 12-month employee. We have 1 custodial worker 2, which is a 12-month employee. Actually, all of our custodians are all 12-month employees. We have as I said earlier, a custodial worker 1 who's a part-timer. To bring him up to full-time status with the benefits is at the cost of an additional $25,000 estimated. We have a split shift person who works basically from 12 to 9 with an hour off for lunch. And he's a custodial worker 1. We have for the night custodians, we have the night lead person. We have 3 other custodial 1s. And then we've got the part-time person who's also a custodial 1 part-time person who we would propose bringing him up to full-time status at, again, an added cost of $25,000, including his benefits. Proposed maintenance grounds worker to replace 1 custodian. So like I said, we were considering shifting 1 position and making it maintenance grounds. And again, the maintenance, as I said earlier, maintenance grounds person can also do cleaning work and help out in the building with the custodians. So we have a current, this is our current staff of substitute custodians. Right now, we've got 3. We do need additional people to add to the roster, and they would only be used when somebody calls out sick and we need to fill a position. Person is on vacation, we have to fill for the week. It's the only time that we actually would use those substitute custodians. We do tend to use more of the substitutes on a little bit more regular basis during the summer months when we have intensive cleaning and moving of furniture and things like that during the summer months. Facilities, future projects. Now, these are some ideas that we've been coming up with. We already know that we've got 5 classrooms that are around the commons room, that we've got asbestos tiles in those rooms, and we've got a number of those rooms where the asbestos tiles are coming loose and coming up. It's going to cost us roughly, as an estimate, $35,000 per room, and that includes not only the pulling up the tiles, but the asbestos abatement for pulling those tiles up, doing all the tests before and after, those kinds of things that have to get done, and then putting new floors down. We're looking at converting Mrs. Tapia's classroom to a home and careers room. And in order to do that, we would have to outfit it with a sink, a stove, a refrigerator, a microwave. There is somewhat of some plumbing in there already. It could very easily be converted. Julie had done a little bit of a cost up on a sink or a stove, refrigerator, a microwave, and on the cheaper side, it's about $2,000. We have to look into a couple of other things, make sure that if you're doing a stove like a gas stove or anything like that, you've got to have some sort of a venting system to vent any of the fumes or cooking smoke or whatever out of the building. Third item, this again, we're spending a lot of money. We're investing quite a bit of money in that new athletic field, the baseball field, soccer fields. For security purposes, we might want to consider putting a fence, a 6-foot high or taller fence around the entire athletic field to try to dissuade people from just using the field whenever they feel like using it. Again, school districts typically will allow outside groups to use the field, and there is an application and a field use permit type of a system, and putting a fence up might also help us to ensure or to make sure that the groups that are out there using the field after hours have valid permits to do so. So it's just something else you may want to consider. It's just to provide an added layer of security for the new investment of those ball fields. The bathrooms in the junior high, we were looking at those again. They're still the original kind of bathrooms. They look a little disgusting. So we could put floating floors in there, and that would be at a cost of about $18,000 to do both the boys and the girls' bathrooms in the junior high wing, like we did for the 3rd grade wing and the 5th and 6th grade wing. Up on the wood hall, we're looking at sprucing that up by sanding and refinishing the floor, the wood floor up there. I mean, it's a nice hardwood floor. It'd be nice to get it sanded and grind down and then refinished. when you come in the existing front doors and you see the greeter's desk, that wood wall that's right behind it, it's nice having all that woodwork, but over the years, the varnish on there has really gotten a little grungy looking, and there's a lot of pit marks in it, things like that. And again, we'd like to cross that out. We want to see what the board feels about the idea of refinishing that wall and expending some money to kind of make that, spruce it up and make it look a little bit better. One of the things we know with civil service, the custodians generally do the cleaning work. They're not supposed to be maintenance people. They're not supposed to be grounds maintenance people, but we've been using them in the past, and it seems to have become more of an issue with civil service. So what got me thinking is I happened to be somewhere and I saw this robotic field lining machine, and it really does a good job of laying out fields, and it one person operates it. It's pre-programmed, and it pretty much runs itself. And like I said, it's a one-person job. You don't need 2 or 3 guys to do all the laying out of lines and tape measures and all that stuff, because it's all GPS and pre-programmed, and it'll handle baseball fields, softball fields, soccer fields, field hockey fields. In the springtime, a lot of times the track coach and even the gym that teachers would have our guys try to lay out some sort of a track that the kids could use as part of the programs. And this machine would easily handle something like that as well. There are so many applications for it. The other thing that struck me was that we've got such a large robotics program that seems to grow year after year. Here's an example of something that's real life practical that the kids who are in the robotics program could actually relate to. Some of those kids in the robotics program could actually operate the machine. It's all done with a handheld device, a little tablet, and they could actually get involved in programming some things on it as well. The cost of the company I spoke to is the only company that's doing this machine, and I asked them about buying it outright, and they said it's very expensive, but they don't sell it. They would lease it to the different organizations and school districts. And part of the lease, if you're doing just like one layout, a soccer field, let's say, or a baseball field, and that's the only thing you want programmed in it, they'll provide the paint, and the machine would lease for about $7,000. The more modules you add, the price would go up for each group. So you're looking at this thing running between $7,000 and $10,000 for an annual lease. Nice thing about the lease is if the machine breaks down, simple phone call to the company, they'll bring a new machine down and replace it free of charge. Well, like I said, I mean, they provide all the paint for that fee as well. All right, and that's about it on facilities. So if anybody's got any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Oh, I'm curious about looking at the last thing first. I mean, how much time does it spend to paint field lines, and how much do we usually spend a year on that?
I'd have to pull, and I don't know how much time. I know at the beginning of each season, it would take, it was Dan and Eric Drew, and it would take them like the better part of 2 full days just to lay out 2 soccer fields. This machine will knock those 2 fields out, because I've seen it do it, full-size soccer fields, knock 2 fields out in about an hour and a half. And that's including setting it up before you start running the machine and then cleaning it after it's done. It's about a half an hour per field that it actually runs around the field. Then the ongoing maintenance of the field, relining it, the machine it's about the same amount of cost for paint. You just don't have to have somebody walking behind a machine, behind a sprayer and spraying the lines down. The machine does it all.
Mike, can I say, this sounds like something that could be like a shared service between school districts, like East Hampton might be interested in going in with Springs to line their fields too, or or the middle school there in East Hampton where they use the park across the way. Is there any way we could look at maybe sharing the cost of this with another school district?
Well, I could reach out for sure. I know that East Hampton puts out an RFP every year for a company that comes in and does all of their athletic field lining. They've got obviously a whole lot more fields to line than we would have.
Right.
Mike, can you find it? I'm sorry, Tim. Mike, can you find out what East Hampton costs them a year to do their schools?
Yeah. I'll reach out. I haven't been so successful getting pricing from them. I'm still waiting for the hybrid tuition from them.
Mike,
I've been asking for 2 months.
If you could also find out what we usually spend a year doing it ourselves. I mean, to me, $7,000 for line seems like a lot of money, but maybe, what do I know?
What I was understanding that, Bob, I think the low end is 7,000.
Oh, right, yes.
For the 3 soccer fields, then the more programs you put in it, the more expensive it gets.
Well,
Right.
exactly, yeah,
And each time and the more you use it, the more paint you use, the more cost it costs.
right.
Mike, was this your thought, or was it something Dan and Eric brought up to you?
No, this was something I had seen and looked at. My son works very closely with a large soccer club up in North Rockland, and they've acquired one of these machines, and he goes out and every morning, Saturday morning early, for about 2.5, 3 hours, and they've got 12 soccer fields, and he knocks them out. It just looked like such a, you don't have, I used to do that when I was upstate too, with the soccer club that I was involved with. It's quite labor intensive to do it by hand, the old fashioned way.
We
You
should
could
be
take,
able to get the cost from East Hampton and what they pay, Mike.
Yep, all right.
And how many times a season do the lines get refreshed? I mean, I really don't know anything about this.
Yeah, usually it's usually once a week you have to refresh the lines, and a lot of schools will refresh the lines before every home game. So assuming the soccer teams play one home and one away during a week, usually that's all they play is 2 games. They would refresh the lines before each game.
Okay, thanks.
And then Mike, just the slide about the next dates and the next presentations for budget.
Actually, I feel like I had questions about some other stuff, but now that I'm looking at it there at, some of the projects that you were suggesting,
We're gonna go back.
like the asbestos abatement in those rooms, is that can that happen before we open in the fall, or is that it has to be like much later once all the construction is done?
No, we think we can get it, Barbara.
What I was thinking here is there's going to be a degree of asbestos abatement with the capital project in July. So if we could get and kind of piggyback with that for these classrooms, it won't take them long to actually put the tiles down. What takes the longest is the abatement itself and all of the testing that EnviroScience has to do before, during, and after the abatement is done to clear the room so that the tiles can then be installed. So, I was thinking if there, we coordinate this, we can have the work done simultaneously with the other renovations going on in the building and piggyback on the existing abatement plan for July.
Right. But is that something that could be handled with, excuse me, if we have like overage or leftover in our building budget versus this coming out of, or is this a repair? Or is this a capital project?
No, I mean, again, if we have money left over in the budget, because we've already done 2 rooms in the capital budget, just like the playground, this could be added in without any problem.
Right.
But if we don't have enough money left over, I mean, to do 5 rooms, you're looking at, what are we looking at? 175,000. We always have put a little extra money in, like we've got a line item in our budget transfer to capital. And this past year, we had $175,000 transferred to capital to do any kind of emergency kind of projects and repairs out of that money, which we haven't touched so far this year. I mean, there's money there that we could possibly tap into because once I transfer it over into the capital fund, the capital fund doesn't follow the same kind of rules as far as closing it out at the end of a school fiscal year that the general fund does.
Right, I'm just trying to think of ways to pay for this without it actually having to be in the budget,
Right. Well, I'm looking at ways that if we're not going to use this year's allotment, that we can encumber it for this year to carry it into next year in the capital fund.
Right.
But ideally, if there's enough money left in the capital project itself to cover this, I would put it against the capital project.
Remember, we did 2 rooms last summer off the Commons area, new floors.
Right.
And, there are reports that the tiles are coming up, which we knew, 2 more rooms behind those 2 rooms. So Mike and I have kind of ordered them as to which ones need to be done sooner than later. But in the end, all those classrooms around the Commons area, for some reason, those tiles are coming up.
And which is odd is that the Commons room itself has the same tiles and is not a problem in the Commons room at all.
I think it's the univents, Mike.
I think it's the univents. I think it's the humidity that gets into those classrooms just from the outside, since they're so close proximity to the windows and the doors that seem to be propped open on the hot days and humid days.
Also thinking about the bathrooms in the junior high, redoing those. I mean, it would be nice to have that stuff fresh and new along with the rest of the building when we open back up. But is that a priority?
It is cosmetic, Barbara, but when I brought the health and safety person from BOCES through the building, that was something that caught her eye. It just doesn't look clean.
Right.
It might be clean, but it doesn't look clean. So, and I showed her the other bathrooms that we have done, and she said, wow, what a difference. You don't have to, really destroy these bathrooms. The tiles are good. It's really the floors that are disgusting.
Right.
No, it is cosmetic. It's not something, but again, remember we're trying to make the rest of the building look better. Especially when you put this next to our new facilities, these spaces will look worse.
They'll stick out like sore thumbs.
Yeah.
But yes, a lot of this is cosmetic. I would say if
I love you as
prioritize this, the floors off the Commons area. If you had to do health and safety, the tile floors.
Can you talk a little bit about also the home and careers, where that actually came from as far as planning? Because again, there's no designated room in the new additions for this room. It would be, from what I'm seeing here, it's converting the room right now that's being used for a classroom into a home and careers room.
Correct, Tim. The reason for this proposal is that the East Hampton High School has put in a brand new culinary kitchen. So for our students to be, I think, prepared to go into that program at the high school, we need to offer our students some sort of culinary experience. And right now, literally, it's on a cart. When we looked at the spacing, this is actually a special ed classroom. So it had a sink in it already. It had a refrigerator in it. It did have a stove in it. The stove was very old. So we feel this is the easiest room to convert into a home and careers room. Where are we getting this space from? If we're down one class in 5th grade or 4th grade, wherever the enrollment is, we're looking at the enrollment. If we're down a class in special education, we could find it there. Just because it's a home and careers room doesn't mean it can't be used by other classes. Remember, we're hoping in September.
So yeah,
we'll be back to changing classes.
So we're looking at 8th graders having this experience, or 7th and 8th graders, or 6th, 7th, and 8th graders,
6th, 7th, and 8th graders, depending on the scheduling. So home and careers is part of 1.5 credits that they need.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, what I would actually, it's not a 1.5. It actually is less than 1 unit for home and careers. It's not quite a unit of study that's required for middle school.
It's a combination though, right? With technology.
Well, with technology, then you have your tech program that takes care of that. So usually your tech program is where you spend the most time, and then your home and careers is not quite a unit of study. least that's what I'm recalling from what I was thinking is, because East Hampton is doing that, why wouldn't there be an opportunity, maybe again, shared services, that maybe our students have an opportunity, if you're just talking about culinary, of actually going and using their facility, working out an agreement with East Hampton. So you put home and careers at 8th grade, and you put technology at 7th grade, and it's spread. You don't have to spread it apart. You can do it all in 1 year, and maybe an opportunity of using that facility instead of doing something at Springs that, you're not going to get much bang for your buck putting in one sink, one stove, one refrigerator, and one microwave to give kids a culinary experience. I don't see how that can be an effective way to approach that curriculum. But if, like I said, if they're doing something like I think they're doing, where they're going to have cooking stations 4 or 5 or 6 throughout the room, where a whole class could go in there one day, we could bus them there and bus them back. That might be something that would be very advantageous for both districts, since they're actually going to the high school after that.
Well, they already have, cooking rooms at the high school.
Yeah, but I think part of the focus is they're building a new facility where the landfill is right beside there, and that's where they're going to be putting their culinary kind of facility. So that's even closer for us if we could maybe. And I think they would be glad to talk to us about some shared services that way. I don't know, using that facility, because it is going to be state of the art, and it would be a great opportunity, say once or twice a week, if we could bus 8th graders to have that experience for the culinary part anyway.
I feel like I asked this one other time when you mentioned this, Deb. Does East Hampton Middle School offer these kind of classes to their kids, or do they wait and take it in the high school?
I'll have to check, Barbara, but it's required that
It's required.
Yeah.
For the middle school.
Yes.
Right.
Right, but the culinary part is just a small part of that curriculum, but it is the most exciting and and popular. So I don't know, they're going to build it. Their interest was in looking at, bringing people in to use that facility just beyond themselves. So instead of spending a lot of money and putting something, actually, you're not going to spend very much money, and you're going to put something in there that really, I don't know how
effective.
Yeah, effective, or I don't know how you want to call it, in inspiring that kind of process is going to be, because kids want to get in there and they want to cook and they want to do, and you got to have the space and the area to do that in, and putting it all into a small classroom with inadequate equipment. I don't know. I'm just questioning it at this point.
Does anybody else, board members, have questions?
Real quick about the fence, Mike or Deb or anybody really, when the project's done, is that field, because I know the parking spaces are gonna kind of come up right against basically like the outfield of the baseball field, and then obviously you go further down, you get to the other fields. Is any of that there where the cars are going to park? Is there going to be a fence? There's going to be no fence there, so a car could literally go up over the parking spot onto the field, or there will be some sort of fencing on the edges where the parking spots are, where the sidewalk would be.
Yeah, the fence would be on the other side of that sidewalk. Remember, you've got, from the north side, you've got the 2 soccer fields, and the first field will not be a part of the baseball outfield, even though it's deep out. Yeah. The other soccer field will be actually left and center fields.
Right.
The baseball field itself is already set up to have fences going down the first and third base line. So those fences could be heightened from 4 feet up to 6 or whatever feet. And then we would add 6-foot fences to go around the whole perimeter of the soccer fields and the rest of the field, going along in front of the parking areas on the north side, but, just south of that sidewalk for the parking areas, and then coming back down along that, hooking up with the fence coming down the left field side of the baseball field.
Right, yeah. And would you need to do the fencing way down at the end where it goes up against the woods?
Well, the backstop and the fencing that goes along the third base and first base lines that encompass the dugout areas, and then the fence that would continue out as that's already built into the project. It's just a matter of bringing it up.
I meant the far corner. I meant the far corner, way down where the other soccer field is. Back there. I mean.
It'd have to go from basically from just beyond that left field or right field foul pole all the way up that one side where we're having the problem with the drainage right now. It would have to go all the way along that side of the athletic field to the corner, and then make that left and go across the south side of that parking area.
I think you got to have fence anyway because of the deer in that area coming onto your fields and keeping those fields safe and clean. You're going to have a fence around the fields. I mean, I don't know too many places. I mean, we're in the woods basically out here in Spring, so I can't imagine not having a fence around the perimeter, not only for security but also to keep it safe.
Yeah. I mean, I worry about someone coming and doing donuts on the field.
Yeah,
right.
And what they're talking about is putting two gates off of that parking lot on that north side, two individual gates where people can walk through to get to the soccer fields. Then going down that other side where the loop is going to be and parking along there, there'll be a double gate for emergency vehicles to have access onto the field like an ambulance. But there'll also be single gates closer to the ball field, so people can park down at one end by the traffic loop and actually access the baseball field without having to cross all the way over two soccer fields to get there.
So how does that work then during like recess if kids are going out to play in that back field and you have a bunch of kids going out there at one time? I mean, I feel like it's going to have a very different look from what we were first looking at in the renderings of things.
Well, yeah, I mean, the kids will be coming from the building, and for our own purposes, when we have recess and stuff, we could open the double gate up to allow more kids to walk in and out through the gate just during the recess. But after that, the whole idea of locking it down is going to be after school hours anyway.
Right. I think it would be good to see a proposed drawing of what that would actually look like.
All right, I know John's working on some plans for it. I'll ask him to do that.
And an estimate of what the cost is.
Yep, he's doing that for us too.
Okay.
Good.
Well, lots of projects to think about, certainly.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah.
Give me enough money, I'll come up with some more.
Well, it would be nice that like if there was like an entrance where you could definitely keep an automobile from getting on, but maybe allow, a line of kids to be able to get through. And then you could, at a later date, you could always decide if you wanted to permanently lock that if needed for security reasons or whatever, but
You can
I don't know. Well, we'll talk, see what John comes up with.
You can go to a big rolling gate if you want by the school, Bob.
Yeah. Okay.
And Mike, I think on the proposed home and clears, you gotta look at the 2000. We have a lot of grants being involved with that for the 2000.
We have a lot of what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
You have $2,000 for a kitchen, a sink, a stove, refrigerator, microwave.
Yeah, Julie priced that right off of like Home Depot. That was the, microwave was like $121. This stove and the refrigerator was like $1,000, $1,500 a piece. No, it wasn't even that much.
Right, but you're gonna buy more of a commercial grade ones if you're gonna use commercial kitchen, or you just gonna buy?
Yeah, I didn't really look closely at what she priced up.
These are bottom of the line. You're looking close to 15,000.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't put stuff in there because it just will break apart. I mean, kids are gonna be cooking on that. You need
a decent commercial refrigerator to keep the stuff cold enough because it'll be a couple of days for the freezer, and you have a refrigerator to keep constant temperature. Close to 15,000 for equipment, Mike. You need a 6-burner stove, and then we're gonna need a gas or electric put in there. There's a lot of money associated with this.
And plus the vent, plus a hood or something,
the
right?
vent and the hoods, yes.
Right.
And if you like the water.
Well, I think one of the other things that's missing from this, I mean, obviously you've got pots and pans and dishes and stuff. We need some sort of a dishwashing kind of a thing.
We'll
have to look into that too.
You need a triple sink, because you won't be able to use a single sink in a school. You'll need a triple sink.
I think Tim had a good point in maybe talking to East Hampton about possibly, if our kids can use their facilities.
But also,
we can
Bob,
get
this is a great idea.
A more accurate price as to what this would really be for what's needed.
Yeah, you lost you, Barbara. Barbara, we lost you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Actually,
This is going to add up pretty quick.
I know, I know, Will, so that's why I'm thinking about an alternative way of looking at this instead of putting together, again,
if you're going to do it 100%. We can't do a 20% thing.
Yeah.
And also the high school offers a lot more programs that elementary and junior high school doesn't offer. They got auto mechanics up there. We don't offer that. They have auto workshop. We don't offer that. Culinary.
But we do have to do this course. It's a mandate, but only part of the course has to do with cooking. A lot of the course has to do with how you plan a budget, how you do a checkbook, and there's sewing involved. There's all kinds of different things involved. So I just think trying to have a culinary experience without really doing it well is going to be difficult.
It's been difficult, Tim, but all of our home and careers teachers have tried to do something for these kids.
Right. I certainly understand that, but again, I think they deserve something more than just trying to do something for them. I especially if you're a home and careers teacher, you're really interested in getting them engaged and actually being, if you've only got one oven and you're trying to cook stuff for, 20 kids, it's tough. It's, if you're going to do it, I would think you'd want at least 2 different stations with that kind of equipment on it in your room. And so they could move from one to the other, or, you could have a variety of kids doing activities. I don't know. I just like to take some more time to talk about that and to maybe plan it out. Instead of just going right.
It doesn't have to be done for this year, Tim, and we can definitely speak to East Hampton. I didn't know that that's where the location was. I thought they were going to do it at the high school.
No, they're going to do and really make it a culinary center. I mean, they're going to do it big time. It's like with Southampton when they did their building and construction, they went big time, and it's become a real center for that program, alternative program. And that's what East Hampton's really looking at, is alternative program, culinary program. And
it's huge on the island. A lot of our students, their parents are in the business.
Right. And it's so close by that to me, it would be an ideal situation where you just take a bus trip every week or 2 times a week with your kids, and to do that experience. You wouldn't have to do it all year long. You could just, plan it out over a semester or a quarter or whatever. As long as you got I think it's 8.6 unit for the home and careers, and then the technology is just a little bit more.
Correct. Mike, just put up the slide with the dates that are coming up for budget. We have to.
We've got 2 more budget presentations. So we're looking at March 22nd.
But let's talk about that. The board does not have March 22nd on their agenda. Originally, we were going to do another budget presentation at a regular board meeting, March 15th. But I know some board members wanted to keep those budget meetings separate. The 4th budget presentation was a question mark. I'd like to, I don't know how the board feels, have March 22nd as a 3rd budget presentation on instruction and learning, special ed, and technology. And then the 4th budget presentation is when Mike puts it all together, rolls it over, tells you what your tax increase is going to be and what the bottom line is going to be. And then if we have to make cuts or adjustments, we have time to do that before April
26th.
26th deadline for the budget and property tax report card to be adopted. So the question is, do you want the 15th or do you want the 22nd?
The third
So
budget.
does the 22nd make that an extra meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
but that's all it will be. That's the workshop.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's needed. I think that's,
Do you like the format that Mike and I used tonight? What's the increases are in the budget? What the staffing is in the budget? Little different format this year?
Yeah, except we weren't really looking at it like with actual numbers as compared to last year or previous year.
Well, it's difficult because there's still so many holes out there that we're trying to fill in. The information hasn't been very quick coming to us. In fact, Thursday, I finally got the rate sheets from BOCES for next year, and that's, $1.6, $1.7 million of our budget alone. So we didn't even have an idea what they were going to increase it by.
Right.
I'm still waiting for the hybrid tuition models from East Hampton. And again, with 25 kids at the hybrid level, you're talking about $1.25 million right there as well. So there's some big numbers out there.
Right. Well, I could do the 22nd. Does that work for everybody else, or do you want to try to keep this on with as part of our regular meeting on the 15th?
I think it gives us more time for Mike to put it together in detail. And I think we need to keep them separate still.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think it's better for the public as well, because after a couple hours, they're kind of worn out.
Yeah.
And it's to be fair to them. And yeah. But Mike, maybe what you could do is, you're giving us down this breakdown like this, but for each section, like you did tonight, we get a copy of the budget where we are at the present moment before the meeting.
Oh, yeah, you'll have a budget status report for this year you're talking about, right?
For the coming year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, because I'll have a budget status report for you that would be through February at the next regular board meeting.
And also, how about, is it possible to get a possible tentative budget? How does it affect the new budget coming forward? The increase approximately?
I'll see what I can pull together.
Because we're looking at different categories, and it's hard to figure all the numbers together.
No, I know.
At each meeting. I think we're used to that. I think at each meeting, going over all the numbers over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, looking at last year's transportation, like a chart with those numbers, and that would have been helpful. And definitely next time, looking at instruction and learning, special ed and technology, we could see the current year's budget, how that was versus what the upcoming one, what the proposals are.
Mm.
Do you want line by line in the instruction and learning?
That might be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we understand it's going to be different because of the pandemic and the way the budget was put together. We really weren't that anticipatory of what it was going to mean for this year. So I know it's going to be difficult, Mike, but anything you can get us close to that would help us to better kind of gauge where we are and where we need to go.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll send you we have all the transportation numbers and all of the facility numbers. So we do have those charts.
Okay.
And for instruction and learning and special ed, Kerry and Christine have been given those line by line. But what we wanted to tell you was what's the difference? What's the increases? Usually in transportation, we might have an increase or a decrease, but $20,000 to gas, I couldn't find $20,000 in the other codes.
Well, that was the next question. You talked about the bus monitors and not trying to cut that job out. Is we should have a discussion about that. It's something new to our program with the pandemic. And most schools don't have a bus monitor. But with the fuel costs going up 40%, we got to look at a total budget on everything, just like every other budget. That's going to make a huge impact also on the facilities, especially heating a new building as well.
Correct. That's why it's up there as proposed, because it's not something that's required.
No, I'm not saying that, but it's proposed. Whenever I hear the word proposed, there's a reason why somebody proposed it. And maybe we should hear why it's proposed and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, and from the,
Well-
I mean, I took that as to be, that was not I mean, if we can fit it in the budget, that would be great, but if not, it's not mandatory, and it sounds like it's been effective in getting kids to sit and keep their mask on. I feel like we kind of need to see where things are, like in the summer and fall, right? Do we need to keep those protocols on the bus for next year? Are we going to need that assistance with the kids? You know, in general, hey, maybe in general, does this keep behavior issues at bay on the bus anyway, in terms of overall safety? But you know, certainly for the distancing and the mask wearing, you know, we're not quite sure yet what we're going to be doing in the fall.
Right.
I mean, I would think, you know, I might want my kid to still wear a mask on the bus next fall, next winter, certainly. You know, I don't know. It's hard to say, but that, I mean, that's certainly a discussion. And at 64,000, you know, that's something to really look at, depending how everything else pans out.
Yes,
Right?
that's the way I'm thinking of it.
These are all first-time drafts, proposals.
Yeah.
These are workshops. These are discussion items.
Do you want to have, with our next work session is until April, correct?
Regular work session is until April. Your next budget workshop anticipated here is March 22nd, if you can all make it.
March 22nd. Are we gonna be talking? Are we gonna be talking budget? Talking about the budget at the 22nd, or at the work session of discussions of different things that come along the way? We have fencing, custodial staff. We have, you know, possible facility out by the bus garage and all that stuff. That's going to affect the budget. What is that discussion going to be taken?
Pat, if it's on the custodial and facilities, we should discuss them tonight, but we don't have to make any final decisions. Mike can roll over the budget and show you exactly where we are if we do nothing that we've proposed tonight. And
Which, at the
then,
very beginning,
Go ahead, Mike.
I had done that before. I just rolled it over, leaving stuff the way it was basically in the budget from last year to give you an idea where it was shaking out. So I feel like I've already done some of that already.
I think
then
it's
we need to
helpful have
revisit that, Mike.
We need to
Okay.
be seeing that at every meeting, because it's hard to, you know, just kind of remember where things were. So I'm kind of wanting to see those numbers on stuff every time I'm in a workshop.
Yeah.
You know, it'll just be easier to keep track of stuff.
Because also what happens too is we start looking at each individual item the way you're doing it, Mike. We start chopping individually out, looking at all the other items. One is we're alienating certain other things, and I'm not seeing the full picture, at least, of exactly what what we're not doing and we can do.
It's the wants and needs.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the wants and needs. Tonight we looked at a lot of wants
Right.
and not a lot of needs. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on the budget so far.
Right, Jim.
Yeah. And it's like we need to have a number for that, for a trailer by the bus yard. You know, I feel like we're missing some numbers in terms of.
Well, that's what I was saying before. There's still a lot of unanswered questions. We're trying to get some information. We're not getting it all from the outside sources that we're contacting to try to get these numbers. Park East, I've spoken with Derek about getting pricing on the trailers. We first was at leasing. Now we're trying to find out if we bought a trailer to just plant it out there for the bus drivers. But that's going to involve a whole new electric service. So JVR was out there taking a look at the power coming in from the pole and whether it can be upgraded in order to hook up the trailer for electricity purposes to run the heating and the ventilating, the air conditioning system, and that kind of stuff. So we're still working on a lot of those things, trying to get those answers.
So why don't we revisit all that on March 22nd, now that we're having an extra dedicated meeting for this, where we can come back and see these numbers for the facilities and other things like that we're asking.
Well, I can certainly have a report done, but the plan right now was that we would use the March 22nd meeting for you to hear from Christine and from Kerry about instruction and learning programs and special ed and the technology piece, which are also fairly significant cost factors to look at. But I can certainly, once I have the numbers from Christine and Kerry, and I get the final numbers from technology, I can factor that all in and print you out a projected budget for next year.
Right, but I'm just saying we can do a follow-up on all this stuff we have questions on then. We don't have to keep it just to that. And so we should really try to get, you know, our thoughts more together for you. So when you actually do the budget presentation on April 5th, that maybe we're a little closer before we start thinking, okay, what do we have to cut out from here?
Okay.
Yeah, Mike, I think you would feel better if we got to April 5th and a lot of our questions and your questions have been answered. And then that meeting would be just to kind of like go over the budget and not start kind of like, okay, well, why did we do that? And why did we do that? And so forth.
Mm-hmm. I'd feel a whole lot better if COVID didn't hit us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all would.
In more ways than one.
We're gonna get through this. We're going to get through this.
So,
Yeah, hang in there. I know it's frustrating right now, but everybody's frustrated and in doing budgets. I know, and the budget I'm trying to do, it's frustrating just as much. So just hang in there.
Well,
I think the important thing is that we try to, you know, slow is fast. I like that phrase. So we're going to get there. It's just a matter of putting the pieces together right now.
Well, like I was telling Deb, I said a lot of my counterparts, they're only presenting to their board their first budget hearing this week. We're on our second.
Right.
But again, everybody's scrambling, trying to find all the answers. There's so many unanswered questions right still.
Yeah.
And speaking
we'll
of
get there.
questions, I just want to, if anyone's listening and has a question about any of the budget items, you can call the number that LTV has up on the screen. If anyone in the audience has a question about anything.
We have 0 callers right now.
Mike,
Is there anything else you want to see for March 22nd on budget?
I think that's going to be a full meeting from what you got there.
yeah, it's gonna be a few hours. No,
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to get to, yeah.
Mike, if you have any updates on state aid, that would be helpful, I think.
We should have the next run on state aid somewhere between March 22nd and March 31st. That's typical when the legislative budget comes out, and that typically becomes the final.
Yeah, did you say they were running away? Is that what you said?
Running
Summer
away?
budget?
No, I said
Yeah.
the state aid, the legislative budget run should be out
Okay.
somewhere between March 22nd and March 31st. I guess that depends if Cuomo resigns or not.
Matt, do we have any callers at this point?
0 callers, Barbara. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Does anyone on the board have any other questions about these budget items?
No, what's the time now?
No? Okay, so we'll get some further information from Mike and follow up on all this on the 22nd. And otherwise, we will be getting back together on the 15th for a regular board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Okay. In that case, do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Aye.